All right, in this video, I'm gonna show you guys how to replace the water pump on a Gen 2 Viper. So this is a 2000. I've made these videos before, but we're gonna do it a little bit better video quality, better instructions, better camera work, better everything. So first things first, you guys can see here, if you're wondering why I'm taking the water pump off, I've done this on a few different Vipers. I just haven't done it to my own. The water pump on the Gen 2 Vipers have a plastic impeller. And for whatever reason, it seems to be a lot of the years, impeller would actually start spinning on the shaft for your water pump. You would get all sorts of overheating issues. But this is a 2000 and it is now doing it. There is a test to do in the service manual if you guys want to check if yours has failed, but I've tried this test on a different Viper and it still passed the test even though the impeller was shot. So what you do is you take your heater hoses off and you start the vehicle and you see if it's pumping coolant, and you kind of try to measure the rate of flow from one of the heater hoses to determine if the impeller isn't spinning. But you won't fully get a good indication, in my opinion, from that, because you can still have flow, but just when things get really hot, it's not flowing as much as it should, or not flowing at the rate that it actually should be. So don't fully trust that test. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this apart. So first things first, take the air box off. I'm assuming you guys are pretty proficient in doing most of the stuff if you're tackling this yourself on a Viper. Take your intake tubes off, take this hose off, take this clip off. There's 3 quick knobs, 1, 2, 3. Also disconnect this hose, and then you can take this box and swing it out of the way. All right, so everything is disconnected from the air box. So lift it up. You can leave these hoses attached if you want. These ones are on here pretty good. And out she comes. Okay, so airbox is out, and you'll probably see some other stuff is out as well. Not a bad idea, you guys, to double check your radiator. These are notorious for leaking and getting clogged, so check all that out because that's a big issue on this. I have a video on that, it's an older video. The other thing too though is I just popped this out. I took the fan off, I'll tell you why in a second. But if you look down and in there, hopefully you guys can see, look at all the leaves and junk that's in there. So a lot of junk gets stuck in there and it's actually clogging things up. So I will be taking out the radiator to clean out all the debris, or you can kind of tilt it back, get a shot vac in there. But what I did do is I added some dye to the coolant before, and I was just trying to run around because I've replaced literally every single hose on this thing. I've changed everything out to silicone hoses, so I replaced all the heater hoses, upper and lower radiator hose, and I always get this faint smell of coolant, but I still cannot figure out where it's coming from. So I put dye in the coolant, and I was checking with one of these UV lights to see if I could see anything, but I still don't see anything, so I'm gonna have to drop it. I was hoping I could maybe find something obvious. Also, I was taking a look through here. This is notorious for leaking as well. In here is the coolant overflow. A lot of people don't even know that this exists, but there's a coolant overflow bottle in here, and this is notorious for leaking as well, but I can't seem to identify it. There does seem to be quite a bit. I don't know if you guys can see that. There is some green showing up in there, so hard to say, but anyways. There is a drain on the driver's side of the bottom of the radiator. I don't recommend removing it because if you strip that out, then you will be SOL. So just to make this easier and safer, just go ahead and pull off your lower radiator hose right there. So just pull the clamp. You can see I've already got a bucket down there. We'll drain the coolant out and then we can get to the fun stuff. All right, so I would recommend getting yourself some of these hose clamp pliers. I'll link them down below if you guys are interested. It makes things a lot easier and nicer. So you can see there it's draining. Depends how fast you want it to drain or how much of a mess you want to make. And you can remove the hose more or less, whatever you want. Also, taking off your radiator cap will make it drain faster. While that's draining, we're gonna go ahead and right here is the tensioner. I'm gonna go ahead and put a breaker bar on that. I believe that's a 15 mil, and then we can take off our belt. All right, so we got our 15 on there, and we're gonna press forward like this. Look at this, one-handed, boys. And you can pop that off. So a little bit hard to do with one hand, but we got her. Let me get this belt off and out of our way. All right, so belt is off, and I will tell you guys, I've seen some people do some crazy things to get this out, but I will show you guys the easiest way to get it off. So there is 2 heater hoses right there, 1 and 2. So just follow these 2 guys down. Remove those. Also, last time I did this, take off your tensioner. If you take off your tensioner, you take off this pulley here. So we'll take this off. I believe it's 13 mil bolts. So take off your pulley off here. You're going to take off this lower radiator hose from there, and then you can actually get this water pump out right here. So you'll notice I moved the power steering cooler, and you can get this water pump out through here. You kind of have to play a little bit of a game, but it comes out through here. You don't have to get underneath the vehicle and lay on your back, which nobody ever likes to do. So happy to tell you guys that, but yeah, you can get this out fairly easy without too much headache. Okay, so here's the last of the 13 mil bolts. I'm getting them out just like this, just by rotating the pulley. And now they're all out. There we go, pulley's off, 4 bolts are out. Next up, I'm removing this ground. So there's a 13 that holds the ground to the chassis right there. So take off that 13 mil nut. Your ground will be free from the one side right here. And then the other side, there's a 15 mil that holds it on right there. So we're gonna get this ground strap out of here. You can get a wrench in, just like you can see I'm doing here. Also, once you get the tensioner out, it'll make it a lot easier to get off those 2 hoses as well. So just makes your life easier all around. Okay, so the 15 mil nut is off, and 15 mil nut is actually everything that holds that tensioner on. So the ground is stacked on top of the post. If I can get this out like that. And the tensioner is the same bolt. It's not double nutted or anything like that. And out comes the tensioner. Okay, so with the tensioner out of the way, technically you could get in here and take off those 2 hoses. You can detach it from this side or the bottom, whatever you prefer. But you will be making some more room as soon as you take the water pump off, because you'll be able to swing them out here and you'll be able to get to the clamps over here. So we'll wait for that. I just removed this clamp with our tool. So I'm gonna pop off our lower radiator hose from here, because there's no point in having it attached. So that is off. Now we're gonna go ahead and we can start taking the bolts out. So I've got all these bolts, the series that go around here. Let's go ahead and get those off. All right, so we can start to take out our 14 mil bolts. I like to use an extension to get out here since you have lots of room. Also gonna pop off this idler because you can get to this bolt, but it's just gonna make it a heck of a lot easier just to pop it off. So take this off, and then we'll continue to take out all our 14 mil head bolts. Okay, so water pump is now free, so our bolts are out. And there you have it. Okay guys, so it is the next day, and I'm gonna keep it 100 with you guys as always. So I originally was pretty certain that it was gonna be that impeller, but I'll show you guys how to check it. All right, so the way you check it is you grab both sides here, grab the front, and then on your impeller, grab it with your hand and see if the impeller stays connected with your pulley. And in this case, she's solid, boys. So it is not rotating on that. I was pretty dang certain, because I worked on a bunch of these, that that was going to be the issue, but it's not. So my water pump wasn't leaking, and the impeller is fixed and it hasn't come loose, even though the impeller is plastic. So I can put a new gasket on this and reassemble it. If you'll notice, I removed the radiator, and the radiator doesn't take a whole lot to take out. There's 2 10 mil nuts, one here, one there, and you can take off the 10 mil head nuts that hold the fan on, and then it literally just tips back, comes out. There's 3 hoses on it. You have this one little hose right here, and then the upper and lower radiator hose. But if you check out over here, you guys, this thing is absolutely filled with, I think, insulation or newspaper. It looks like newspaper because I can see writing on it. The other day I was driving down the street and I went through like a cloud of newspaper. It was at nighttime and I couldn't really see, but it is, my whole radiator is jammed up with this stuff. It is all stuck inside all the fins. So I'm wondering if having all this jammed up in here is leading to my running warm situation. So I'm gonna clean this out and just blow water through the backside, see how much of this I can free up. So let's see what happens. Okay guys, so quite a bit of junk flowed out of there, out of the cooling fins on the radiator. But anyways, I'm going to continue to show you how to take this off, because that's what I promised. And like I mentioned, I just took off those 2 clamps down there on the 2 heater hoses right there. and it just makes it easier to wait, because like I said, I could move this way over here and get to the heater hoses easily. Also, probably not a bad idea to take a picture of which hose goes to where, so that you know your orientation. This one's coming off here going to the front, and that one's going to the back, and then we can slide those hoses off, and then I'll show you how to get the water pump out from here. Okay, so I'm just wiggling off the heater hoses here, and now voila, she comes out just like that. Okay, and this is the test that I was telling you about. So grab here, grab there, and see if you can spin it. If this spins, you'll normally see it spinning right there. Then you know you need to order a new water pump, or you can get an aftermarket impeller and try to install it yourself, or there's people that are selling rebuilt water pumps with the billet impeller. So either way, this video is on how to remove this. I need a new gasket, which is supposed to be showing up in a few days. We'll resume once my new gasket shows up. Okay, so I've tried ordering a Cometic water pump gasket, an OEM water pump gasket. All of them seem to be taking forever. So what I did was I went ahead and purchased some Felpro gasket material, and I'm gonna trace this because that way we can get this thing back together, because they're both on back order. I both have active purchases on both Cometic and OEM, and they're still not showing up. So I'm gonna go ahead and trace out gasket on here. It's really not that complicated of a shape, and it's gonna be legit gasket material, and then we can put this thing back together. Okay, so this is taking me way longer than I wanted to, but I'm carving out this gasket. So I had one oopsie, and then I found just a candle lid here, and that was about the perfect size of this. So I use that, and then I cut, you can see, a million times to get the size of that. And then I was left with something like this, and I traced it from the back side, cut it out with the scissors. So once I was able to fit it over top the water pump, I traced it from this side, and then I cut open that water jacket. And now I'm gonna take it out and just drill the holes. I'm gonna use a drill bit to drill out the holes for our bolt holes, and then hopefully this gasket will be completed, but coming out pretty good. All right, so we've got our gasket made. So what I did was I just drilled the hole through. Then what I used is one of these deburring bits, went through the backside, or a step drill bit, cleaned out the hole, and then I put a bolt through, and then just continued to do that. So I just pretty much held the bolt, drilled through, and yeah, now we've got a perfect gasket, you guys. All right, well, we are about to put this back together. We've got our gasket that we cut out handmade from Felpro, and probably the biggest job of this whole thing, you guys, is going to be cleaning up your surfaces, getting all the old gasket material off of this, and then getting all the old gasket material off of your timing cover. That honestly took me the longest out of absolutely anything on this. I'm talking like a couple hours to get it clean. So I used a ton of these razors with the flat blade, and then after I got it all off, I just cleaned it up with a little bit of emery cloth, and now she's good to go. So you go ahead, grab our water pump, whether you're replacing your water pump, or if you're in a situation like us where it didn't need to be replaced or fixed, then you're gonna be in the same ticket, but same procedure. We'll throw our gasket on, we'll go ahead, throw our pump on, start tightening everything down. First things first, I'm gonna come in through here, and before I actually mate up my water pump with the surface and with the gasket, I'm just gonna get it in the approximate position, and I'm going to connect those two heater hoses while the pump is out here. So I'm gonna slide these on down here. I don't know if you guys can see from there, but I promise you that is what I am doing right now. Slide this puppy on. And again, using our hose clamp here makes it easier. Okay, so I've got my bolts here for the water pump. I'm gonna get my gasket in place. And our hoses for our heater hoses are on. All right, so our bolts are in. We can start to tighten them down, torque them to spec. Then we can put on our pulley and start putting everything back together. Okay, so we got our water pump back on. All the bolts are tightened down. You could, I mean, depends what sequence of events. There's just a lot of stuff that needs to get done, but up to you guys. You could put the pulley on, but right now I'm gonna go ahead and put our tensioner on since I'm down this way, and then I'll put the pulley on after that. So let's go ahead and get those in. Okay guys, so I went ahead, I put the pulley back on our water pump. I put everything back on. Make sure you put your lower coolant hose back onto the water pump, so that's back on. Then I went ahead and put in our power steering cooler, our belts back on, our belt tensioner. Make sure you don't forget this ground strap right here on the back of your tensioner, and just make sure everything's tight. Other than that, fill up your coolant, bleed it properly, and put in your air box, and you're pretty much good to go. So what I'm trying to debate if I'm going to do it or not. I went ahead and purchased one of these kits, so I'm going to try a different method this time around. So I'm going to do it with the vacuum method. So it essentially pulls a vacuum on the system, and then you use the vacuum to suck the coolant back into the system, and apparently it eliminates any air pockets. So I might try it a slightly different way, but anyways, that's going to be it for this video, you guys. That's the water pump install. If you guys are interested, you want to see more videos, I'm going to probably show you guys some other ones. I'm going to actually take off the front fascia right now, and I might actually make another video on how to bleed the coolant on these cars. So if you guys enjoyed it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, check out the other videos, and we'll see you guys on the next one.